Since it's my first meeting, I'm going to do something that normally I leave to the chancellor, and I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes. I promise I won't do this very often, because I prefer a good debate, a good discussion, and I enjoy that, and I respect that. And so, but nevertheless, I think I ought to say a few things about what's on my mind in my first meeting. As we all know, the 2012 session kicked off last week in Tallahassee. And all of us look forward to working with the House and Senate, as well as Governor Scott, during the session, all of whom have demonstrated they care deeply about higher education. In his opening remarks, Speaker Cannon spoke about his commitment to higher education and building a system that will ensure the future prosperity of our state rather than continuing down a path that he described as aggressively racing to mediocrity. Speaker Cannon spoke about the constitutional role of this board, but he also said that we are unsure about how to exercise our authority or execute our mission. Speaker Cannon has asked Chair Bill Proctor and the House Education Committee to engage this board and the presidents of the universities in a dialogue about the system of higher education in Florida. I, for one, welcome that dialogue. I know that this board stands ready to work with Speaker Cannon, Chair Proctor, and the other members of the House, as well as President Herodopoulos and members of the Senate, and Governor Scott, in addressing the challenges facing higher education. I want to touch on a couple things that are important to me. First, I want to say something about quality. We live in a state where we need to increase access to higher education. We need to increase the number of graduates. We all know that we need to increase the number of our STEM degrees. But something we also need to do and talk about is we need to increase the quality of our universities. From the outset, I should say that I'm very much in favor with working with the Florida college system to address the quantity and access issues. This board needs to continue our dialogue with the Board of Education and with the legislature to make that possible. Kathleen Shanahan, the chair of the Board of Education, I know will welcome that dialogue, and I'm sure Commissioner Robinson will as well. What I also want to do is develop a roadmap for our universities to become great. I believe that is one of the purposes of Chair Proctor's meetings with each of our presidents. Our research universities need to be given the tools to recruit the very best faculty in the world to teach in our universities and to conduct research in our state. Likewise, our universities that are more focused on teaching need to become the very best teaching universities in the country. While we may have some work to do, we have a head start in a lot of areas. I have a couple of slides here. I'm not real good. I'm not an academic, so I'm not as comfortable with this as it. But let's look at where we have to let's look at our SAT scores. What I have here is a bar for the top 10 public universities, the rankings for 11 to 25 and 26 to 50 in the ranges of their SAT scores. If you look at this, you can see that the University of Florida is number 18 and doesn't have far to go to get in the top 10. FSU is in the top 50. UCF is not far below the top 50. But we've got work to do to get our 5 institutions in the top 50 and to get a top 25 program at every university. That prior slide was the upper 25% quartile of all these universities. So, I'm encouraged by those that SAT slide. If you go, I'm also impressed with the progress we have made on our graduation rates. We highlight our graduation rates as one of our key system achievements in the annual accountability report. Our state is in the top 10 nationally for overall graduation rates and the top 6 nationally for minority graduation rates. When we compare systems, we are 4th. That accomplishment is a reflection of the hard work of everyone, students, faculty, administration, and the boards of trustees. They've all been working hard to improve these graduation rates. While we are moving in the right direction, we still have a lot of work to do, however. Half of our institutions have 6-year graduation rates below 50%. That has to improve. We learned a lot about why that may be happening, and it has to do with people working full-time and still trying to keep a 12-hour credit load so they can get financial aid as a full-time student. There are a lot of reasons for this, but we got to get it better. But we're making progress, so I think that's a good thing. We're also making progress on R&D expenditures. Florida ranks 4th in the country, and the state university system has grown faster over the last 10 years than any other state in the top 10. However, individual universities need to ramp up R&D efforts because only Florida and USF have R&D expenditures that compare the top 50 public universities in the country. On the faculty side, I want to talk about the number of National Academy members and faculty salaries. If you take a look at this slide, you can see where the average of the top 10 publics is 70. I think it's 76. You all don't have this number, but I believe it's 76 National Academy members is average. That's a little bit distorted because Berkeley's got 219, which is an extraordinary number. But if the number 10, the smallest number of National Academy members, is 32. So University of Florida, which has 23, would need to hire 9 National Academy members to be at the bottom of the top 10, and would need to hire over 30 to get in the average of the top 10. That's a huge way to go. But it can be accomplished, but it takes resources. It takes financial resources. It can be accomplished. Our other universities, however, have a long way to go to get in play on these things. The average of the top 50 is 10 National Academy members, so we have a long way to go in that regard. Let me take a look at the faculty salary issues, because there may be a link to some of this. Right now, the average salary for a full professor at University of Florida is $122,000. That salary is not even close to the average salary of $145,000 for the top 10 public universities. In fact, $122,000 is the average salary for full professors at institutions ranked between 26 and 50. It is not surprising that our institutions that don't have more National Academy members, because we don't pay enough. If you look at these salary numbers across the line at all of our institutions, you can see we're significantly below where the top public universities are in the country. We got to improve that if we want to get better. The annual report that we approved yesterday, sets forth a lot of this information, and it tells us where we are today. In the strategic report that the strategic plan that Frank Martin worked so hard on tells us where we want to go. And Dr. Ari Levon and Jason Jones and the rest of the team have done a really good work on those two documents. So I think we're pretty good, but we can get better. So I want to change subject to something else that I think is related to all this, and that's financial aid, because the way we're going to get better probably includes increasing tuition. In the last 5 years, state support per student has dropped from 70% to 54% for the system, a loss of $521 million. Over that same time, tuition has increased by 51% and now comprises 46% of the funding per student. Yet, our tuition is still really low when compared to the rest of the country. Only 6 states have lower tuition rates than ours. It appears obvious to me that in these economic times, tuition increases may be the only potential source for new revenues for our universities. I accept that because I don't see an immediate alternative, and because I don't want to stand still or worse, participate in a race to mediocrity. But I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the students in this process. Our number one focus is students, and we must continue to be aware of the impact of tuition increases on students, especially middle-class students who do not qualify for Pell Grants. This issue is tied to another real problem that students across the country face in these tough economic times: increasing student loan default rates. I firmly believe that we will not reach our quality goal or the degree production goal that is part of our strategic plan if we fail to tackle financial aid. I'm almost done. I do want to say something about governance. The events of the past year across the system have forced me to better understand the significant responsibility provided to this board in the Constitution. Think about what we're charged with doing. We must operate, regulate, control, and be fully responsible for the management of the whole university system. Those are weighty responsibilities. Recent events have forced me to acknowledge how we have delegated many of our duties, this board's responsibilities, to our boards of trustees. Speaker Cannon is right when he says the responsibility for ensuring a successful higher education system was given to this board by the constitutional referendum that voters passed in 2002. But he also realizes that currently we are limited by the extensive delegation of powers that took place in 2003. I would encourage this board and staff to think about whether we are currently playing the role that was intended for us when we were constitutionally created. I have spoken with the Speaker about this, and he has encouraged this reevaluation. To be clear, I have no desire nor do I recommend assuming the duties of the boards of trustees. Many decisions must be made by the local university boards of trustees. Those local boards have weighty responsibilities under the Constitution as well. The Constitution provides that the local boards must administer the universities. But on the other hand, I believe that in certain situations, this board must be able to weigh in and to provide the leadership that the Constitution envisioned for us. Most importantly, the board needs to be engaged when things go bad. We have a bully pulpit, and we should use it. And we should not forget that the authority in the Constitution was given to us, and we should not hide behind what may have been a too broad delegation of power to avoid the tough issues. And I have no doubt that the members of this board are willing to tackle tough issues. Certainly the past 90 days has proven that to be the case. It makes me so appreciative of the leadership that we enjoyed under Ava Parker, who made sure that we made difficult decisions in a thoughtful and deliberative way. On more than one occasion in the past few weeks, I have wished that Ava was still sitting here. I said at the beginning I don't like long speeches, but I did want to take some time this morning at my first meeting as chair to say a few things that are on my mind. I believe that we can develop the best system of higher education in the country if this board works cooperatively with the legislature and the governor and reaches out to the business community for its ideas and assistance. The legislature and the governor have shown great interest in our universities and higher education over the past year, and we should welcome that attention. And, of course, it is critical that we visit with and listen to our faculty and students. I cannot imagine a finer group of people to tackle these issues than the 16 of you, the Chancellor, and the wonderful people we have in the board office to make us look so much smarter than we all are.